When the wise get wiser, wiser, what he reaps is foolishness. And when the righteous is over righteous, righteous, what he does is blasphemy. Hello, viewers. You agree with me that one of the most neglected, looked down upon set of people in the society today, especially in this part of the world, Nigeria, Africa, are reggae musicians. The song I just sang is a lyric from a reggae track. People look down on these reggae musicians because they believe after taking weed and smoke, drugs, and all that, when they open their mouth, what comes out in terms of lyrics of their music are nonsense, things that doesn't add up. But I tell you something, I have taken time as a big fan of reggae music to follow the lyrics of reggae musicians and their tracks, and I can tell you authoritatively, assuredly, that reggae music is prophecy and reggae musicians are prophets. If not, tell me how we can explain this madness that a 22-year-old pastor, Pastor James Sakara from Zambia, who was the pastor and founder of Zion Spiritual Church, asked his own congregation to bury him alive, that he was going to resurrect on the third day. Is that not madness? So it proves the song I just sang, that when the wise get wiser, what he does is foolishness. And when the righteous is over righteous, what he does is blasphemy. Viewers, please, if you are not subscribed to this channel, this is Pepsi channel, please hurry up and subscribe to this channel, like the videos and share them, and don't forget to click the bell button so that each time I upload a video, you'll be the first to be in the know. Viewers, the biggest miracle ever in Christendom, in the entire Christian community worldwide, is the death, resurrection, and ascension of Jesus Christ to heaven. That is the biggest miracle, and it will ever remain. In fact, the two biggest religions in the world today, Islam and Christianity, both recognizes that there is something extraordinary, something supernatural about Jesus Christ. The Islamic Holy Quran acknowledges that Jesus Christ was born of a Virgin Mary. That is to say, there is something supernatural about his existence. And then you come to the Christian community. Christians believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. That in fact, he is a member of the Godhead that dwelt among men here in mortality. And at the end of his earthly ministry, just like he prophesied, he was crucified, he died, he was buried, and on the third day, he resurrected. And afterwards, he ascended to heaven. It amazes me, it baffles me, and is obviously very ridiculous that men, when they have gotten a little knowledge, they begin to equate themselves with God. They begin to tempt their creator. They begin to tempt their God. They begin to assume and arrogate the supernaturality upon themselves. In this video, I'm going to share with you two people that have tried to replicate, to recreate what Jesus Christ did by dying and resurrecting, and how these two people ended. The first person was Lauren William D. Lawrence, an American author and publisher of occultic books and spiritual books and topics. First, he started by seeking knowledge, and the more he acquired those knowledge and truths, the more he immersed himself deep and deeper and deepest. And he got to a point he thought he can equate himself with God. He can equate himself with Jesus Christ. And this was a man who had disciples just like Jesus Christ, who walked about preaching and behaving like Jesus Christ. So he got to a time, precisely in 1936, that was when he was 68 years old. This man told his congregation, his disciples, to bury him, that he was going to die and he will be buried, and on the third day he must resurrect. He was going to resurrect. And so it was. And so on the 8th of September 1936, D. Lawrence of Chicago in the United States of America died. And like he instructed, his disciples buried him. And on the third day, being 11th September 1936, D. Lawrence actually resurrected. And just like he was about to come out of his grave, God the Almighty sent thunder and it struck him dead. And I want to tell you, I strongly believe that if God did not prove himself, then Christianity would have been a mirage. Christianity would have been rubbished if this man had actually survived. This is what knowledge over knowledge can do. Just like the song I sang earlier on, when the wise thinks that they have gotten wiser, when you check, they have become foolish. And when the righteous person tend to be over righteous, what that person is doing is blaspheme. There are no two ways about it. That is exactly what it is. And so that was the end of an era of a man who equated himself with God. That is D. Lawrence of United States of America. And that was how he died. And now, I don't know why people cannot walk side by side with history. I don't know why people tend to forget history in a hurry. I don't know why people cannot ask questions. I don't know why people will be so arrogant with religion. I don't know why people will overdo things. Now, the history and the story of D. Lawrence was not sufficient enough, was not lesson enough for a Zambian pastor, Pastor James Sakara, who was the founder and the pastor of Zion Spiritual Church. A 22-year-old man, at that tender age, a 22-year-old man, James Sakara. Perhaps his grandfather didn't tell him the story of D. Lawrence. Or better say, his parents didn't tell him the story of D. Lawrence. Or above all, he never had time to read through history. He didn't ask questions. And so, this man wake up one day. Now, because of this unusual religious excitement in the world today, unusual religious excitement, this Sakara, 22-year-old man, was a witch doctor. And then he concluded that with his witch doctor power, devilish, satanic and demonic powers, and then the one he gathered from fake miracles and all that he can do or replicate what Jesus Christ did. And so James Sakara asked, this was a young man that throughout his ministry he wore white robe like Jesus Christ with brown sandals. And then he asked his congregation to bury him alive, that he was going to resurrect on the third day. And then his congregation was quite reluctant to do that. They were reluctant. They pleaded with him. They tried to dissuade him. They tried to discourage him. They pleaded with him to forget about that venture. But the man had already made up his mind. And so he commanded, it was not a command, he commanded his congregation to bury him. And he boasted that he was going to resurrect on the third day. And so, as you're going to see the pictures attached here, you see how his congregation dug a grave, and then they binded him, tied him up with ropes, and then buried him. Even before then, when he saw the reluctance in his congregation to bury him alive, he declared with a loud voice, he declared, "O you men of little faith, O ye men of little faith, bury this James Sakara today, and in 3 days' time you will see him alive. You will see him resurrected." That was the last straw that broke. That was the last straw that broke the camel's back. That was the last straw that broke the camel's back, because the congregation yielded, and they tied him up and buried him. And then on the third day, when they couldn't see him walking about, having resurrected, they decided to dig up the grave, and then they made him dead. They did all types of incantation, all types of prayers, and all types of voodooism and fetish things, just to revive him, just to bring him back to life. But that was the end of that madness. Pastor James Sakara gave up the ghost. That was how he died. So viewers, I don't know what is your take on this video. This is now the second time, the second person to try to replicate the feat of Jesus Christ, to try to recreate what Jesus Christ did. Is that not madness? If you ask me, viewers, I would say that this is madness in the highest order. Highest order. Madness in the highest order. God is almighty. God is supreme. But foolishness, ignorance, have made men at one time or the other to try to put themselves side by side with God, to equate themselves with God. And the resultant effect, is exactly what we have seen. First, it was D. Lawrence. He died, he was buried, and he's resurrected, but he was struck dead by thunder. God proved that he is God. And then second, D. Lawrence was a 68-year-old man. But this is just a youth, a young man in his prime, 22 years old. He became power drunk, and then he wanted to challenge his creator. And that was the end of that era. So viewers, please share these videos.